Three seventh-grade boys take their first steps towards something. And somewhere between 40 to 50 meters under the water, people are getting attacked by sharks again. That and more on today's episode of The Real Review. So stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where we get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. I'm here with Matt Presents. Hey. Who am I today, Matt?
Everybody. I am here with Joel Jumps a Shark Cunningham.
I did jump a shark, yeah.
No, not really. I just wanted to say that because there's sharks in my review.
It's a good, I mean, the implication, I guess, would be that I'm no longer relevant and I'm not doing my job very well. But, you know, I try, Matt. I do my best.
Yeah, it's good. Either way.
My presentation, my Matt Presents, is based upon another film, which we're not going to have time to talk about today, unfortunately. But I did get a chance to see Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw. Maybe we'll give at some point, we'll give a rundown thing
let's see.
at some point. But anyways, Matt here getting going on the podcast. Why don't you give our listeners some ways to get connected?
Y'all can get connected with us a number of different ways. One of those being through our website at realreviewmedia.com. But more importantly, that directs you back to our social medias, where we're talking about news and those types of things, specifically like the Spider-Man news from this weekend, this week. And that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Real Review Media. You can catch up and connect with us and email us any questions you may have or what our hot takes are on these news items at realreviewmedia@gmail.com.
Yes, we'd love to hear your thoughts and perspectives and inputs and things like that. And in case you're new to the podcast, in case you haven't listened to us before, just a good reminder as well for those who have. Matt and I like to kind of give you the two different sides of the perspective. We give you kind of the fan and the critic perspective. We put those together to give you kind of a real thought and perspective on the films and the content we've had a chance to see. Mostly films these days. We usually don't really venture too far from that these days, but sometimes we do television and all that stuff. So,
totally.
Yeah, talk about film.
Like Stranger Things 3 was okay.
Yeah. I place it a little bit below season 2. So
see, we did it. TV.
Yeah. We did it. Cool. Well, why don't we hop right into it, Matt?
Yeah,
it's been a while since we've done these reviews. It's had to take a little time off, but we are back at it. And I'm going to hop into with a film that I just had an opportunity to see called Good Boys.
Right on.
Synopsis for this one: 3 seventh-grade boys ditch school and embark on an epic journey while carrying accidentally stolen drugs, being hunted by teenage girls, and trying to make their way home in time for a long-awaited party. The director is Gene Stupnitsky. It's got a couple of folks in there that you might recognize. Most of the kid actors I don't really recognize all that much, except for Jacob Tremblay as
I'm a fan
Mac.
of his.
I've seen him in, I think, 2 other properties other than this. We also have Keith L. Williams as Lucas and Brady Noon as Thor. You have Molly Gordon as Hannah, Josh Karras as Benji, and Midori Francis as Lily. On the adult acting side, you have Lil Ray Howery as Lucas's dad, Will Forte as Max's dad, and Rita, who I recognize from Parks and Rec.
Rita.
Yes, which was cool seeing her. I haven't seen her in much since then. So with this film in particular, I didn't necessarily feel like I had too much of an idea of what to expect going into it.
Okay.
It says very clearly R on the front,
Yeah.
and the trailers that they released, I believe, were almost entirely Red Band trailers.
Right.
Like the first trailer I saw for this in theaters was a Red Band trailer, which if you're not familiar with that, Red Band means that basically it's a rated R trailer.
And they also have that bit where Seth Rogen's telling the kids they can't watch the movie because they're not old enough.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's a trailer. They're saying, actually, we're getting ready to release your movie that you guys were in, that you acted in, but you're not allowed to watch it because you're too young.
That's actually funny.
It is, yeah.
I didn't see that.
You didn't see that one? Okay.
No. So the thing is with this production group and this team of like writer director type stuff is they've done a couple of the movies, Superbad, Neighbors, and Sausage Party. Superbad, out of all the films that they've made, I think Superbad was probably my favorite of them.
I don't know if I've seen any of those movies.
Okay, yeah. I've seen all of them, including a little bit of the Sausage Party film.
Okay.
But I had to not continue watching that because it was just so awful. Yeah. I had to turn it off, and I wasn't going to review it. And so I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time on this.
Okay.
Superbad, I wouldn't say it was a great film for me,
Sure.
but it had cleverness, it had distinctness, and it had like an individuality that I appreciated and I liked. I just think some of the humor didn't really land for me because it's more it's situational humor, but it's also very dialogue heavy.
Yeah.
It's very like improvisational type humor. And sometimes that goes a little far for me, and
Sure.
it was just a bit too off. Neighbors, I didn't like as much as Superbad for different reasons. I don't want to talk about all these films, but because of that and Sausage Party, I had a very I'm not sure what to expect with this. And unfortunately for me personally, this film lent itself more towards the Sausage Party side of the
for real?
scale.
Okay.
There was some good elements about the film. I think one of the things that I liked about it is that it did, in a weird way, and I won't spoil it too much, but it had a bit of like a heart to it.
Okay.
It had a message that was deeper than just like, we're going to just do shock, crazy humor.
Yeah.
And they were really trying to make it about these three boys growing up and the relationship that they have and how they experience life together and
Right.
what directions they're going to go in, even with their life. And
Yeah.
I could definitely appreciate that. I could appreciate that it had a bit of a heart. I think the acting was okay.
Okay.
It didn't blow me out of the water at any
Sure.
moment. It really felt like they were relying heavily on editing to kind of gloss over some pretty bad looks and cuts
Sure.
or kind of like not cuts necessarily, but bad acting at times.
Like comedic timing.
Yeah, like the
humor.
comedic timing of the kids. They would like have a look or something and they would flash to it for just a brief second and then they would jump to one of the other kids just kind of staring at them. And then they would have like a reaction shot or
Right.
something like that. And it just felt very much like these kids weren't in it super well. And so they were trying to cover that over
Right.
by jumping between different things.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I really wasn't a big fan of, and I'm kind of dipping now more into the negative, was the overall humor style.
Sure.
They tried to do this thing, and I know it's because they're kids and they feel like they can do this because they're child actors and everything, but they try to make the kids into these individuals that were very aware of the world that they lived in and had a very modern sensibility,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time didn't know very obvious things
Right.
and didn't figure out things that I think most kids, even if they're only 7th graders,
Right.
would probably at least have an idea of,
Mhm.
not to be graphic, but like there's a lot of sexual humor in
Yeah.
this.
And they made
There's a
that
lot of-
apparent in the trailers too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like sexual objects,
Mhm.
and it's like if that looks like a sexual object, then they're not so dumb that they're not going to be able to figure out that that probably is what that is, you know?
Right.
So there was just times where I'm kind of like having to force myself to think these kids are just that stupid
Naive.
naive
Yeah.
to not figure out.
Sure.
And it was made worse by the fact that there was a surrounding cast of people that seemed to be more normal
Sure.
and kind of everyday, with the exception of Will Forte, who kind of plays good cop, bad cop in a weird way. So the humor didn't really land for me all that well because it was
gotcha.
trying to be zany and stupid.
Sane and stupid.
But it was so like, I didn't get where they were coming from with the kids.
Yeah.
I didn't know if they were trying to take advantage of the idea that like these are young kids so they're naive, or if they're just trying to make the kids like they would in like Dumb and Dumb or something, make stupid characters that make dumb decisions.
Yeah.
And I've spent, I don't, not to talk too much about it, but
Right.
like I've done a lot of volunteer work with
Yeah.
kids organizations. I've done a number of kids camps and I've spent time hanging
Right.
out with, 7-year-old kids and 6-year-old kids. They're, especially boys, can be really dumb at times and I was,
Yeah.
not to be rude.
Yeah.
But like we make dumb mistakes. We're going through a lot of changes. We don't know what's going on and we do make dumb errors, but it's usually most of the time they're not going to make these egregious errors like this
Right.
because they're so cautious of, they're going to be one of two ways. They're either going to be completely sold out with just looking like the idiot because they don't
Right.
care, or they're going to be completely closed off and not want to look like the idiot at
Yeah.
all. And they were like trying to float this weird line with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say before you like rate it and all that stuff, I want to say for this movie specifically, I'm a father of 4 boys. For me, I have a hard time reconciling because what I do is I always put myself in specific places. Like I know that this is funny and that this is all humor and that's kind of the concept of
Yeah.
it, but the idea of like if my kids were actors, like I couldn't let them be in this movie. I
Yeah.
feel like I would be a terrible father if I would let them do something like this.
Yeah.
So like I have this thing where I can't get my head out of the reality. Like why are these kids in this movie? Like
Yeah.
why is this a thing happening right now? And that's another conversation. But that's where my head goes every time I see a trailer for this. I kind of get sad a little bit.
I get where you're coming from, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the kids are dropping F-bombs left and right. I mean, they're
and what they're interacting with. and, like,
interacting with
yeah,
things
yeah.
that look really inappropriate. And I mean, like as an adult, you'd be like, well, that's kind of weird
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
gross. I mean, again, I'm not
I
going
get
to go
it.
into
Anyways,
it.
I was
Yeah.
just
No. And that's a very valid point, a very fair point. I think it feels like they're taking advantage almost. That's kind of the bad side of it. It's like it felt like you're taking advantage of the fact that I know that these are young boys and they shouldn't understand this type of stuff, and that's the humor of it.
Yeah.
Because other than
I understand
that,
the concept. I'm just saying, as a dad, I'm
yeah.
And just for me personally, I'm like, oh,
it feels icky. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was probably like 3 or 4 times where I kind of chuckled.
Yeah.
I mean, there was 3 or 4 moments of like unexpected humor, but every time that there was humor like that I actually laughed at, it wasn't at like the expense of the boys' naivety or stupidity. It was really just like an unexpected moment of a parent saying something or doing something. There was like an interaction they have with a cop at a gas station, which I thought was pretty funny because he's like dealing with these obviously idiotic children, but that was just funny because it's like a really smart person dealing with an obviously moronic individual or group of individuals. So it's like humor like that actually made me laugh. I think so because of that and my overall feeling, I didn't really leave this feeling that it's anything that I could suggest.
Right.
You know, there's no real, like if you're an adult, you're going to look at this and go like one of 2 things, either like, oh, you like gross out humor, or hey, they're kind of taking advantage of these young boys' stupidity and naivety, and it's not something you would ever probably want to show your kids.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, I'm gonna rate this one. I'm gonna give it a D+.
Okay. I gotcha.
68-ish kind of
Okay,
range,
okay.
67. The shooting style, I didn't talk too much about that, but I kind of did with the editing. Pacing.
Right.
The shooting style and stuff felt very forced. It felt very quick paced. There was literally moments where they would have a joke and it would jump cut to them being like in an entirely different location at an entirely different time of day.
Weird.
And it was like, where was the transition there?
Right.
And it was almost like they just needed to jump to another joke.
Or
So
there
instead
was something cut.
Right. So instead of having a natural through line, it was like, it felt more like they just had the funniest scenes that they thought were in the movie and they tried to put them all together to make something funny out of them. There wasn't, the best thing I can say once again about this movie to me was that there was a bit of a heartfelt kind of tone to it. So there you go, Matt.
Cool.
All right. Well, Matt, would you like to give us our next review?
Let's do this thing. So the next one is going to be 47 Meters Down, Uncaged, which is the sequel to the 2017 film 47 Meters Down.
Look at that.
And here's what it is, basic, and you can get this from the trailer too. But it's 14 girls diving in a ruined underwater city quickly learn they have entered territory of the deadliest shark species in the claustrophobic labyrinth of submerged caves.
Dun, dun, dun.
Directed by Johannes Roberts, who did the first one as well.
Mm-hmm.
This is quickly becoming, I think they're going to turn this into a not biannual, whatever. Every 2 years, they're going to release one of these things is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
This one, I think, overall, I think I liked it better than the first one.
Really?
And that I don't think that's a popular opinion, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It stars a bunch of people I've never heard of before. Sophie Nellis, Corinne Fox, Brianne Shu, Sistine Rose Stallone. Anyways, so this movie was, along with the first movie, were just kind of dumb, fun movies.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, there's a bunch of really stupid decisions that get made, and it's one of those movies where if you're like me and you want to go and just have a good time at the theater and don't really care about dumb script elements, great. I think this would be enjoyable. There's a couple times I jumped. It did well. I mean, for PG-13 rated films, yeah. So let me give you the first one that I saw 2 years ago. For the first one, 47 Meters Down. I didn't like any of it until they got in the water.
Okay.
Like the character, any of the stuff they built around that, I did not like any of it. This one, I did appreciate the character development stuff that they did more than the first one before they got in the water. But there's a lot of predictable moments. There's a couple of unpredictable moments. There's one outlandishly silly moment that kind of kicks off the whole chain of events that happens. And I'm not going to ruin it. It just involves a screaming fish.
Okay.
What?
Like,
anyways,
Little Mermaid style.
As soon
scream?
as that happened, I kind of laughed and was like, okay, all right, let's just have fun here, because that was absolutely absurd.
Take this down a notch in my mind. Yeah.
So, and it happened. But then other than that, it was fun. I like sharks. I like monster movies. I liked Crawl. That's probably been one of my favorite ones this year.
Yep.
And this one, it's not as good. For the most part, it has good CG. There's a couple of scenes that has mediocre to subpar CG.
Okay.
But this one was definitely entertaining, and they took it a couple of different routes that I didn't expect at the end. That was kind of fun. I don't remember. You and I talked about this before, but someone gets Sam Jacksoned. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
Yep.
so someone gets Sam Jacksoned. I'll just leave it at that. You and I talked about this with another movie. I couldn't remember what it was earlier this year or late at the end of last year. Someone got Sam Jackson. It wasn't in the Meg. It was somebody else. It was another type of
crud.
movie like that.
I know what you're talking about. I don't remember.
We had the conversation, though.
Yes, we did have the conversation. I'll have to
Shoot.
think way back.
Anyways, we'll have to come back to that. But anyways, for the movie, it was fun for what it was. It's not a great script. It's not like anything super special. But if you want to go just see some sharks, eating people and stuff like that happening, then this might be the movie for you. But if you want to see an Oscar caliber film, don't go see it. Anyways,
just real quick, one of the things I heard about this movie that a lot of people are complaining about is like if you have ever even remotely looked into actual scuba diving.
I haven't, so I don't know anything about it.
I've heard that it's like completely like unrealistic. It's completely impossible, but I wouldn't know.
I'm pretty sure fishes don't scream at people underwater.
Probably
so
not. Yeah.
just say that.
That's a good starting point for scuba diving knowledge. And then additionally, the trailer special effects made it look a little cheap.
That was my thought, and some of the stuff in the trailer was some of the bad CG.
Okay.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
there are some pretty good shots in there though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where would this rank on? So if you had to you're on one side Jaws, best shark movie ever. I don't know. The other side is like Sharknado. I don't know what's on your other side. Where would you kind of put that?
That's tough because there's not really any really solid shark movies. My favorite shark movies are Jaws, maybe Jaws 2, Deep Blue Sea because of
obvious reasons.
It's fantastic, even though it's cheesy as heck.
Yeah. Cyber enhanced sharks. How can you go?
The Shallows, I really like though.
Okay.
I will say that I really like the Shallows.
Shallows.
It's definitely not as good as Shallows. It's closer to Sharknado, but not all the way on that spectrum. I'd say it's more in the middle.
Gotcha.
I'd say, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I will probably not be checking that out then.
Cool. Sounds good to me. I'm okay. I'm going to give it a. I'm going to give it a. Let's do this. I'm going to give this movie specifically probably a. Ooh, I was bouncing back and forth. Let's go with a 70. Let's go with a 71.
71?
Yeah, but like an enjoyable 71.
Yeah. Like an enjoyable. Yeah, overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally cool.
Well, thank you, Matt. I really appreciate that.
Not a problem,
breakdown
man.
of the film there. And like I said, I probably won't be seeing it anytime soon.
Right.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up on the podcast here. But I want to thank you for listening. And just again, a reminder of some ways to get connected. RealReviewMedia.com is a great place for us to post all of our different episodes as they release. We also have our Facebook, which is Facebook. Our Facebook.com/RealReviewMedia. And then additionally, Instagram and Twitter, which are both at Real Review Media. And then we would love to hear your thoughts and perspectives, especially on some of the films that we haven't had a chance to review that maybe we got a chance to watch, but just haven't had time to put the reviews together. But we would love to hear thoughts. Shoot us an email, realreviewmedia@gmail.com.
Yeah.
There you go. Anything else, Matt, for us on the podcast? Any final, really briefly, thoughts on MCU Spider-Man? We kind of teased at the beginning.
So sad.
So
sad.
Yeah. I'm mixed opinions.
I don't care who's to blame. I just know that he's not going to be in the MCU, and that's not a good thing.
We want him back.
We don't
care. We don't care whose fault it is. Just fix it, guys.
Oh, this would be a great opportunity for when they do get him back in like 5 years to call it Homecoming 2. Right?
Re-homecoming.
Right? Homecoming for real.
Homecoming. We really mean it this time. Yeah.
No, that's it.
Just shovel out all the billions. And
new thing. Sorry.
Yep.
We're talking about sharks. The people who did Sharknado, that whole series, they were doing a new series. It's called Zombie Tsunami.
I saw that. That looks ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous. It's like all the Sharknado people.
They're creating their own universe now, too.
Great. Good for them. There's people that watch that show. Good for them. Okay.
Awesome. Well, then, it's been real.
It's been real.